Hello, and welcome to the pilot episode of the Andrew Reeder Show. I'm your host, Andrew Reeder, and together we'll explore Midland and its community leaders. I'm here in the studio today with Miss Diana Brookins from the Mid-Michigan Medical Center, Midland. Hi, Diana.
Good afternoon, Andrew. Thank you for inviting me today.
Oh, you're welcome. So what do you do at our hospital?
So I am actually the volunteer manager, and so I help guide and direct a staff of about 250 adult volunteers at our medical center, along with approximately another 100 high school students throughout the year.
Oh, okay. How long has the hospital been taking on volunteers?
So actually the hospital has a very rich history of having volunteers from the inception. So the hospital was originally called Midland Hospital, and it opened its doors in 1944. So this past year we celebrated the 75th anniversary of Mid-Michigan Medical Center Midland.
Oh, really?
And we have had volunteers since the inception.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Right.
So, how long have you been the volunteer manager? Not 75 years.
No, not 75 years. But we do have a volunteer that has been with us since the very beginning.
Oh, really?
Yes. I've actually been the volunteer manager for 8 years now.
Oh,
But
okay.
I've been with the medical center for 22.
Oh, what'd you do before that?
So before that, I helped as the coordinator of pre- and postnatal education services. So I was a childbirth educator and had a newborn parenting group and other classes to help make sure that parents were prepared to take their babies home.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you like your job as volunteer manager now?
I really do like the job. It's been a great fit. I've always been involved in jobs that help build relationships and ones that help to bring fulfillment to others. So just like being involved with new parents as they started new journeys in their life, I really enjoy being a part of people who come in and start a new journey as a volunteer in our medical center.
Oh, okay. So, what age groups, what age do you start volunteering at?
Okay, so we actually have two different groups of volunteers.
Oh.
Andrew, yourself, you've been part of what we call our student volunteer program. And in the student volunteer program, we will take you from the time you enter high school, so basically about 14 years of age, and through college. So that's considered our student volunteer program.
Oh.
Our adult volunteer program takes you from any time where you're no longer a student through however long you'd like to volunteer.
So, how important would you say the volunteers are to our hospital? Like, would you say that it's more just for the volunteers, or would you say that the hospital really couldn't deal without them?
Well, you know, it's both. It's a very symbiotic relationship between the two. The fact that we've had volunteers from the very beginning, one of the things that I would say is that the volunteers have always been very focused on patient needs. So for example, from the very beginning, some of the things that the volunteers did were they held fundraisers to purchase material so that when we used to have what used to be called our wards instead of private rooms, they sewed curtains to put between the beds so that the patients could have some privacy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so none of that has really changed. The volunteers are still focused very much on the needs of our patients, our visitors, and staff. And so anything that they can do to make life a little bit better, maybe a little more pleasant, has really been their goal. Just in Midland, our volunteers provide about just over 40,000 hours of service per year.
Oh, wow.
And if you look at the value of what a volunteer is worth, that is really close to $1 million in service.
Oh, wow.
So if you look at it from the standpoint of what do the volunteers provide, obviously they're providing these services. Now, these services never take the place of paid employment.
Oh, of course.
They only augment and make things better. One of the other functions of the volunteers is that they do raise funds. So we have gift shop volunteers, and actually our organization itself raises funds. This past year, fiscal year that just ended on June 30th, the volunteers gave back to the medical center just over $200,000 in gifts to help support equipment needs and also the building of our new heart and vascular center, which will open in the fall of, or late summer 2020.
Okay.
But all in all, really, the focus of the volunteers is to help alleviate any stress and make that patient or visitor that's coming into the hospital, make them really feel welcome and relax them as they enter our medical center.
Okay. So, and you record times for student volunteers that need volunteer hours too, right?
Right, I do.
Okay.
I do. So our students give on average of about 4,000 hours a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what different jobs are available for students?
Okay. So the student volunteers are broken down into 4 different services. I think you've been involved in 2 now.
Yeah.
So the very first one is what we call our food service aid, and that's one that you've participated in. And our food service aides work with our food service ambassadors. So every day we are serving around over 200 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner to our patients. It is a dining service, and so as assisting the ambassadors, you help a patient place their meal order. Maybe they haven't placed it because they didn't realize they were supposed to, they didn't understand the menu, they didn't have their glasses on, they weren't feeling well. The second step is delivering with the passing of trays. And it's so much more than that. You know that.
Right.
There's safety standards involved to make
yeah.
sure that the right food gets to the right patient. But there's also assisting them. Are they able to open salad dressings or juice cups, things like that? And then also then the collection of the meal trays at the end. So that's one of the services. The second service is the emergency department service. In there, the volunteers help. After a room has been cleaned by housekeeping, they restock it. So they remake the beds, make sure the supplies are back in there for the next patient. They never round on any of our trauma rooms, but they will round on our non-critical rooms that may be waiting, just to let them know that the doctor's going to be in, their next stop is maybe x-ray, and we're waiting for somebody to come down and get them, and then to see if there's anything that they need. So that's 2 of the services. The third one is our guest and patient service at the hospital entrance. Those volunteers come in after our adult volunteers have gone home. So they deliver e-cards up to the patient rooms, flowers up to the patient rooms, and they help escort people within the medical center to where they need to go. And then our newest service, which I think you're involved in, is called a floor host. And it's welcoming visitors onto the unit, helping to direct them where the room is, but then also following up on non-critical issues with our patients, such as maybe they just need a drink of water, maybe they need their blinds shut, maybe they can't figure out how to operate their television set, those types of items. So things that allow the staff to perform their jobs at a higher level when we're able to augment those.
Okay. So that's the student volunteer
That's
ones.
the students.
So what do you got for adults? They do all the same ones?
So we do have adults in all of those programs, but in addition, we have ours broken down into reception services and wayfinding. So we have volunteers that sit at a lot of different desks. We have over 80 entrances into just the medical center. Obviously, we don't staff 80 entrances, but we do staff 5 reception desks and the surgical and invasive lounge. Oftentimes, those are staffed with not only an employee but a volunteer to help accommodate the traffic flow in the areas. We escort people. We also have our fundraising services, which is the gift shop and popcorn. So this past year, our gift shop made a pledge of $186,000 back to the medical center. Popcorn at 75 cents a bag has raised over $7,000 this last year.
Wow.
So that is something that our visitors look forward to, and our staff. So that's really nice. We have people in patient services, so they pass the meal trays. They help at the Reeker Surgery Center in the back with the patients. We are in the Health and Fitness Center, Cardiac Rehab Center, and then we also have volunteers who have therapy dogs. They come in every Monday night with their therapy dogs and make rounds. We have volunteers who are in our inpatient behavioral health unit. They play bingo. And I'm sure that we have a couple more, but those are the highlights.
Okay. Okay, so when is the next session for student volunteers?
Okay, so the student volunteers I try to run on kind of a school calendar. So we are in the middle of the summer right now. Probably about mid-August, I will send out the materials for the fall session, which you can become a new volunteer during there, or you can re-up like you have a few times, and maybe try a different service or maybe stay where you're at. And the orientation will come not the first week of school, but the next week after Labor Day.
Okay. So, what does the training involve? Like, is it a quick one day, or is it more than that, or?
Right. So, the medical center is credentialed by the Joint Commission, which is our credentialing agency, and there's certain things that we have to cover in order to make sure that our patients and our visitors and then our volunteers are safe.
Right.
So it generally involves on the pre side, when your application comes in, I do a background check with the permission from your parents.
Right.
Adults also get a background check. We provide a free TB test for all of our volunteers, and my student volunteers need to provide a recent immunization schedule just to make sure that they're up to date and that we're not in the process of maybe spreading any communicable contagious diseases like chickenpox and measles and mumps.
Okay.
Following that, there's about a 2-hour medical center orientation, which I know you've been through,
Right.
where we go over what are our customer service expectations, what to expect in the hospital, what our codes mean, just a lot of that kind of things. You get your uniform there and your badge, and then you will have a specific orientation, which is also approximately 2 hours, to your service area.
Okay. So, how long would a session last?
So generally a session for the students is somewhere in the vicinity of between 10 weeks and 12 weeks. It just kind of depends. Our next session, which is the fall session for the students, will run from that week after Labor Day to Thanksgiving. Then we'll start our winter session. The winter session runs a few extra weeks, but I always give you Christmas week off.
Right.
And exam week.
Okay.
We run the spring session, which always gives you spring break week off, and then boom, into the summer session. So there's 4 separate sessions per year.
Okay. And what about for adults? They don't really have sessions, do they?
No, they really don't. Our goal is to bring them in, and my job is kind of like putting that puzzle together. So talking to them and seeing what kind of position they're looking for. Do they want a lot of social interaction? Do they mind being on their own? Do they want to be in patient rooms, not be in patient rooms? What's their availability? All of those types of things. And the goal is actually to keep them as a long-term volunteer. I have quite a few that are what we call life volunteers, which means that they've given over 25 years of service already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how often is a student supposed to volunteer in that one session? I forgot to ask that.
Okay, so a student commits to one shift per week.
Okay.
Okay? And usually I give you 1 week of an excused absence, so that if you've been sick or you've got a lot of homework or projects due, or family vacation, band concert that comes up that wasn't initially scheduled, those types of things. So each one kind of varies a little bit, but you usually end up with about 20 to 22 hours of service, unless you're on the floor host, and those shifts are 3 hours right now.
Okay. So, but, there's not a lot of walking around for the floor host, so it kind of justifies the extra hour.
Well, it was just the way that she needed, when working with the needs of the department, that was kind of what we decided. She said, I need somebody from 9 to noon, noon to 3, and 3 to 6. So that was kind of what we went with for the summer. I will evaluate it, and we'll look back for the fall and decide if we'll go back to 4 to 6 for the students.
Okay.
Because during the school year, I try to make sure that we're not overcommitting, students.
Right. Because school always comes first.
School always comes first, yes.
Okay. So, how should someone contact you to start their journey as a volunteer?
Okay. So they can always go to our website, which is www.midmichigan.org, and there's quick links. And when those drop down, one of them is volunteer, and it will direct you to that. Okay? Now that's for our adult volunteers. Student volunteers should either call me at 839-3340 or send me an email, and I think it's going to come up on the screen, but it's diana.brookins@midmichigan.org, and I email the student materials out.
Okay.
Okay, so I keep a running list and then send it out when it's all ready.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here, Diana. I think that's all the time we have for today.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Andrew.
All right.
We enjoy having you as a volunteer.
Well, thank you. And thank you for watching. The Andrew Reader Show is made possible by Midlanders like you. Thank you, and have a good day.